Hi, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Dreamweavers podcast. This is interviews with people who are in their dream job and the story of how they got to where they are. My name's Harris, and this interview is with Prashant Kakad. Prashant is a Bollywood DJ, and I first heard of Prashant when I went to one of his events. I never heard of Bollywood music or been to a dancing event before, and it was also my first night that I'd ever gone out sober. I was like taking antibiotics, so I couldn't drink, and I never danced sober. So anyway, went to this Bollywood event, and the music and his stage personality were so engaging. But the music's easy to dance to, and then he gives you these little moves in the beginning that sort of make it so you can hack it. And I had the best time. And since then, I've been such a proponent of Bollywood, not Bollywood, but Prashant's Bollywood. So it was a logical conclusion for me to want to interview him for this podcast. And we knew each other through mutual friends, so we sat down and had a little chat. So Prashant, first of all, he's very successful with what he's been doing, not just in Bollywood, but in the music scene in general. He's got such a huge following, and in such little time, he's created something so impressive. He does Bollywood shows. He's got things set up in Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Seattle. He does shows in D.C. He's always traveling and putting on events, and everything seems to just be getting better and better for him as he's found something that he can really thrive in. So, that being said, I was surprised to hear his story and where he came from, because the person he describes in the beginning of his story is so different from who he is now. And it was so encouraging for me that this path for him, sort of him exploring his love of music and dance and his really a huge risk, the risk he took in leaving a good job to pursue it, has really opened him up as a person. And he's just a blossoming dude. I know that's literally a flowery word, but he's just a cool guy. He's really easy to talk to. He made me laugh a bunch. He's got a really bright personality. And it's all this, hearing from where he came from personality-wise and who he is now, it's evident that him following his passion has really opened him up. And that being said, as part of his story, it's the perfect example of starting small. As he had an idea of where he wanted to be, and then he took little steps to sort of chip away at that, starting as small as just going out to dance parties and hanging out in the corner for a little bit. So that I enjoyed that because sometimes I'm the guy in the corner. So there's a lot in there for me to resonate with. And also interesting about Prashant's story is that, keep in mind as you're listening that he's an Indian immigrant. He was raised in India in a little village. His dad worked to send him over. So that the stakes for him, for leaving, again, a comfortable job to pursue something that had no sort of guarantees in it, was a really huge step. And he also is an immigrant, so maybe circumstances might be different for him. I don't know how. But fact is, he had a lot of cultural and family expectations that he had to sort of live with, deal with, and overcome in order to be where he is. So, it's, again, pretty tight conversation. We really focus on his story, and it's really a pleasure. Like, if it was a movie, it'd be one of those like really cheery Christmas movies you see with your parents about just the good guy winning. So, one caveat, or actually 1.5. We recorded this in his home. It was a beautiful Portland afternoon, so we had the windows open. And occasionally you might hear a car pass by, or some birds chirping. The birds, I feel, is actually a really nice ambiance for the conversation. The cars, not so much. So hopefully you don't even notice it. And it's also, because it was so nice, that's when the pollen was out and about. And if I'm talking in this interview and you hear a pregnant pause, that's me searching in my scrambled scrambled egg of a brain. That's what pollen does to me. It was just kind of, I don't know, kind of hard for me to think that day. But enough about me. Prashant's wonderful, and I'm really happy he and I got to sit down to have this conversation. I was inspired by it, especially going to his events and knowing where he came from. I'm all the more behind what he's doing, and I always look forward to the next Bollywood event. So, enjoy.
Just using, because when I was growing up, I was told, oh, no, don't use those words, and I'm sort of rebelling and be like, no, what the heck, But I don't have to necessarily do that publicly. So, this is public domain, so I'll tone down on that.
Okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's...
Because the people who are listening to it are old enough to hear that.
Yeah.
So actually, I hit record.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going now.
Okay.
And then, if there's anything that you want to have cut, you just let me know.
Okay.
And you take it out.
Okay.
So, Prashant, thanks a lot for sitting with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I mentioned the vision of what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
But when did it first start? Like, when did it first peek into your life?
Yeah, thank you. So, for the listeners, I am a Bollywood choreographer and DJ, and I used to work at Intel. And when did it first come? When it first came to me when I moved to the States, I went to Cornell for my master's, and the moment I landed, within the first few days, I just hit this severe depression, which I think might be very common for a lot of people who come from other countries, that all of a sudden the whole world around them is very different. They don't have their family around them.
Yeah.
But along with missing my family and my close ones in India, I realized that for the first time I was just myself. I wasn't an older brother, an older son of a lower middle class family. I wasn't any of those. I was just me. And I just felt this emptiness and this vacuum that I was not doing what I wanted to do actually in my life. And I felt this intense calling to go back to India and try in Bollywood. And I had no idea what, right? I didn't have any significant talent if I, assessed myself honestly. And so I was like, man, this is crazy. I want to entertain people. That's what I want to do. I don't even know exactly what that entertainment looks like, and life sucks, and this sucks, that I'm going to get back into my comforters, That's how it was. That's when it first came to me. This vision that I am supposed to entertain. That's my calling. That was way back, like 13 years back.
So this was,
right?
Did this come onto you as soon as you got off the plane?
Not exactly. It was gradual, and I wasn't aware of what was happening as it was happening. It just showed up as depression, and it showed up as sadness, and it showed up as not wanting to be where I am, and I mean physically and in my life terms, And then it took me a little bit of time to decode, unravel or decode what was really going on, and then I came to this realization that I really want to entertain or do something with performance and music and dance, and this is how it's showing up.
Gotcha.
And so then what I started doing was, and this is really crucial, I think, because as we were talking before we started recording, that it's important to keep the dream alive. And so I started, I looked up at Cornell all the possible avenues where I could dance or sing, because those were things I really liked.
You were doing a master's in engineering?
Yes, as I was doing a master's of science in textiles and polymers. And so I started looking up those places, and many of them, in fact most of them, were undergrads driven, and I was a graduate student. And so most of the undergraduates at Cornell were like, what the heck is this graduate student doing? Everywhere I show up for auditions, this guy is there, he's there in singing. I was part of an a cappella group, and he's there in dancing, so I showed up for Bhangra auditions, and could have gotten into the Bhangra team, but after I realized that they would be dancing 20 hours a week, and I was like, oh my god, I cannot do that.
As you're doing your master's.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, but then what I also did on the side was I started going social dancing. When I showed up at Cornell 13 years back, I was about 30 to 40 pounds bigger than I am right now. I had low blood pressure. I didn't know that. So the doctors misdiagnosed me in India as having epilepsy. And so they were treating me with sleeping pills for epilepsy, and the major side effect is weight gain and general lethargy. And so that was a part of my constitution, right?
Yeah.
And so I discovered social dancing, which, I would show up and I would be petrified of asking people to dance. So I would just stand there until someone was kind enough to ask me to dance with them. And then I would embarrass my way through the dance, telling them, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm probably wasting your time. Right? And they were consistently, people were kind to me, and they just would be like, no, it's okay, come on, it's good. And so I started feeling safe and accepted on the social dancing scene. Most people are very afraid of doing anything like that. And I would just say, in my experience, I just showed up. I hardly ever asked people to dance. In the beginning, they would ask me to dance, and they were just so kind and nice that I felt really safe. And so then began the addiction for social dancing. And I had a phase of 6.5 or 7 years that I used to say that dancing for fun, social dancing, is my relationship and date. And I've had 700, 800 dates, and every time it's a happy ending, Because if you dance 4 or 5 hours non-stop, you feel so happy, It's just incredible. And it didn't start off like that. It really started off as me showing up, being very nervous and not asking people to dance, and them asking me to dance, and then slowly started building up. And one day someone recorded a video of me salsa dancing. And I saw the video and I was blown away that I was moving my hips in a very I was faking the Latin hip movement really well, And so that was inspirational to see, because I had just been doing it for fun and I had no idea how it looked, to an outsider. And then I saw the video and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So then that encouraged me to continue to do that, So throughout my time at Cornell, I was dancing a lot and I was meeting a lot of people. I was making a lot of friends. That was very different from what I still struggle with ongoing at Cornell. I continuously throughout my time there struggled with, I should go back to Bollywood and try something. Maybe I'll try singing or dancing. Indian Idol, like American Idol's Indian version, was just starting off then, And so, yet I knew that it was very impractical. And so I looked for practical avenues in my life. What could I do right now, And so that kept the dream alive throughout my Cornell days. And I believe that the vision was formed back then. I was able to act on it almost, you can say, 6, 7 years back, Yeah. So should I keep going?
Well, I'm curious what happened next.
Yeah, so I got a job at Intel, and while I was just finishing up my master's, and I was in a PhD program, and I was like, well, if I don't really want to do this technical thing, I should probably not get the highest level of education in it, right? So I was like, okay, let's save that seat for someone else who really wants to do a PhD in textiles, Let's not just waste the world's resources or reduce the waste. So I decided to take up, plus Intel, gave me a decent salary, and I had come to Portland for the interview, and I fell in love with Portland. I went dancing, I went to a seaside and Cannon Beach, and went to temples here, and I just had the most incredible weekend when I came here for the interview. So I just was like, oh man, I hope I get this job.
It's a fit, at least the environment.
Yeah, and I could see that this other side of me would have more avenues here,
Yeah.
So I moved to Intel with that particular reason, because Ithaca was great and I loved it, and I thought I would just die there, get old and die there. But didn't really. At one point in time,
I was
like,
that around the company, it was like you saw people who were there too long, and you're like, not me.
Yeah, so I moved to Intel, and within a few months I was like, okay, if I'm at Intel for more than 2 years, I'm going to start retarding as a human being. I would say that for fun, but at least for me, I know that is true.
Yeah, that's when you're not growing anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
You're going to start shrinking.
Exactly. And so I moved to Intel to start a job, but then within the first 2 weeks of coming at Intel, I performed at Portland State University. I sang a song for their whatever the function they had, So I started just plugging right back into the community. And here, the Indian community in the beginning really supported me, because they were like, wow, here's this guy who wants to like sing and wants to dance and wants to lead people into dancing and stuff like that, and they really enjoyed it and they really encouraged it, and so that was a great booster to my confidence. And so I started doing that a lot for like non-profits, cultural events and stuff like that,
You were leading classes?
Yeah, but not really, like it wasn't dance classes. It was sort of like, this happened even at Cornell, at dance parties. I was the party starter dude. They would be like, hey Prashant, like the music started and no one wants to go on the dance floor, right?
Someone's gotta be that guy.
Someone's gotta be that guy. So I was that guy.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
so they would be like, hey Prashant, why don't you get the party started? So I would just go and dance, and then people would follow me, like that would just happen. And and honestly, it's kind of like consistently that would happen so much that at one point of time, this is a funny story. I started teaching dance to adults because I was at a club in Portland here, and I was dancing, and these big Punjabi guys come in. The Punjabi people are people from North India. The Bhangra music comes from them, right? Their culture. They come in. They come in, like start talking to me, and they corner me, and I'm scared, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder if I'm gonna get beat up for some reason. I'm counting all the friends I have in the club, right? Because I don't know, people get drunk and they want to start fights, right?
Yeah.
However, in this case, to my complete utter surprise, these Punjabi guys are like, hey man, we really like the way you dance. We want to learn Bhangra, which is their music and dance. Cool. Can you teach us? And I'd never taught adults before. I had sort of mustered up the courage to ask two friends, and with three of us were teaching 12 kids. So I started teaching dance to kids like that, but never to adults. And I was like, I tried to get myself out of that. I was like, but it's your culture, your music, I don't know really. I'm not from it. So, they're like, no, we want to come. And they're from Salem. And they're like, we'll come every Sunday.
Wow.
I was like, okay.
What a cool turnaround.
Right?
You see these guys and you're like, these guys are here to beat me up.
Yeah, and instead they're like, hey buddy, let's dance, yeah.
Yeah, but they're like, I want to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
I like what you're doing.
Exactly. And so they started coming every Sunday from Salem, and another cool thing about Portland is it's just got these incredible people, right? So my friend Susanna, who lived in a house called Madison House on 20th and Madison. It's a big house, and it's an all-women's house, and she knew about all of this, and she was like, why don't you have them come to the top floor of our house? It's just a big, in UK English you call it machan, but I don't know what you call it in America. The top level of the house.
Like an attic?
Attic, exactly. So the attic. And so she offered the attic for free, and she's like, just come. And so all these dudes are coming to the attic of an all-women house to learn dance.
Big guys, right?
Big guys, And so we're all getting together and every Sunday, and that's how I started teaching dance to adults. And then I brought it to teenagers, and at one point of time I was teaching at PCC, PSU, Reed, and several private classes,
Okay, you were approaching them.
Yeah, well, yeah, then I started sort of taking it seriously, but we jumped ahead a little bit. This was after I had quit Intel. But the way
I was curious if this was overlapping.
It was overlapping. So we'll come back to what happened when I came to Intel, right?
Okay.
I think in my case it was destiny, because if Intel and my boss and everything had not been so pain in the butt as they were, I probably would have stuck around. But that job was just so absolutely not for me, and that it drove me to a level of insanity where I felt like even if I had to leave everything I had worked towards in America and go back to India, I was at peace with it, And this is a thing that especially my Indian friends and family and all are like, this is borderline courageous and crazy, right? And now they say it's courageous because it's working out. If it didn't work, it would be crazy, right? But I believe it was both. It was that edge of courage and crazy. Because I what happened was on August 16th of 2000 and I believe that was 2009, that in Portland they have a festival called India Festival. It happens around mid-August on a Sunday at Pioneer Courthouse Square. It's an open outdoors festival, all-day festival. It's beautiful. Highly encourage people to go.
Yeah, I went last year and it was It's really fun.
Yeah. And so 2009, I was there. My little kids performed, my teenage kids performed, and my adults performed. I had a live band. My band performed, and then I DJ'd the closing of that night. And so all of these little areas that I had kept my dream alive, they all got a little say on Sunday evening, right? At Pioneer Square. And Monday I went to work, and I was like, what am I remembering from this weekend, right? What was really memorable to me? And this is gonna sound cheesy, but I'm a Bollywood DJ, so that's how it goes, I guess, right? So I close my eyes and I'm imagining that one moment when the breeze was just blowing, and I had this cotton shirt, a loose shirt that the breeze was just, swifting through, and the band is playing music, and everyone is just enjoying the song that we're performing for them. And I was like, that is life, I felt fully alive in that moment, more than anything else. And then I went back to mindlessly clicking my mouse on, back in the days I was using a desktop, I don't anymore, but, and doing that.
At work.
At work, yeah. And then it occurred to me, like, I started just thinking in a very calm way. I was like, I'm 27, I don't have a house, I had sold off my stupid decision of getting a 2-seater sports car after my Cornell, right after starting Intel. So I had a Honda Civic. So I was like, okay, I have decent enough car that doesn't have huge loans. I don't have a house. I don't have a wife. I am a free agent of the world. And the only thing that is keeping me at this company is this idea that if I leave it, I might have to go back to India. So can I come to terms with this worst fear that I might have to go to India, And then I thought to myself, well, I love music and dance so much that even if I went to, I come from a village in India, My parents grew up in villages, and I spent considerable amount of time myself. And I was like, if I go there, I might try to learn what they're doing and incorporate some of the Bollywood stuff there, or just learn what they're doing and maybe, document that, because that is a whole another area that really needs to be addressed by somebody, Or I might be in a small city and I'll start teaching dance classes in India, or I might go to Mumbai. All of those are fantastic avenues, So what am I really afraid of here? It's the world saying that it's going to be a huge failure if you move from America to India. At that point of time, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so
that was like sort of not a nightmare, but something you weren't very comfortable with.
Exactly, yeah. And
like,
in a family, in this Indian social family setting, it would be such a disappointment. Oh, he worked so hard to send his son to the US, and then the son just came back. It would be like you lost a battle and you came back home, right?
So like you're coming back with your tail between your legs.
Yes, exactly.
You're defeated.
Defeated return. And I thought to myself, dying every day because you are doing something that you don't like and feeling really unproductive is having that tail under your, what's the term again?
Tail between your legs.
Between your legs every day. Would I rather live my life with my tail between my legs every day, or would I just accept that this might happen if I go to India, if I move to India? Yeah. And so I asked my manager that I needed a couple of days to rethink things, and he kind of knew where this was going, and he said, okay, take a couple of days. And then I made a lot of I kind of thought about all of this by myself, then made calls to my family and my singing teacher and other mentors that I knew people, older people who cared for me, who had been through life, and I took a lot of their advice, and most of the advice was be careful, be cautious, be careful, be cautious. But my family, who had seen me do these little things, help lead a dance lesson here, sing a song there, they'd seen how hard I worked when I did that. And my dad, all credit to him and my mom, because they were like, we know how much passionate you are, and we see it in you. You work really hard, and we see that people appreciate, and we believe that you have the potential to make it. And clearly that's what you want to do, so we're going to support you doing this, It was still a very cautious, but at least it was a yes. And I, personally, for me, I needed that support from my family and my close friends to make that decision. So then I went back to work and I said I'm going to, transition out. And what I wanted to do after Intel is totally different from what I do now,
Okay.
which is something that people might want to get used to the idea that
Absolutely, because it's so. You just needed something to do after Intel.
Mhm.
It didn't have to be like. I mean, it would be nice, right, if that was the thing.
yeah.
But you needed something to do, and
Mhm.
I love hearing how what you set off to do. Somersaults turns into something different.
Totally different.
So what?
Yeah.
So what'd you do?
So I thought that I wanted to go to India and try it out in Indian Idol, and so I made myself a 6 months plan of like 8 hours of singing practice every day, and I had a little bit of money in my bank account, and I was
8
going to use
hours,
that.
that's a lot.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
Wow. So
yeah.
you were
I
not
set
working
off
at
really,
all.
Yeah,
You
I
were
was
like-
not working at all, and I was like, I set off this idealistic goal for myself, right?
Yeah.
And very quickly, my funds sort of started drying out, and I was like, "Oh my God, I don't think I can sustain myself for 6 months." I hugely miscalculated this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a job with Office Max, hood to coast. I was one of those people, when you go to play the games after finishing the race at this one place, you throw the ring, and the guy who picks up all the rings and brings them back to you.
That was you?
That was me, right? So I did that sometime in August of 2009, August, September.
Yeah.
And whole weekend I made some change, and my back was almost broken at the end of it, right? And so I was like, oh my God, so now I'm finding myself in the real world where people have to, like if I'm not providing a skilled labor, then I have to use my body to make money, right?
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I'm doing that and I'm making money. And I was like, what else can I do with my body that I actually like to do, that I can make money with, right?
Yeah.
And so began teaching dance. And so I went out, a PCC, PSU, Reed, all of these different colleges, as well as privately started teaching. In fact, on the fridge there in orange and white, on the top portion, is one of my first flyers of my dance classes that I made for myself. It's right by the handle on the top one, the freezer.
Under the
under the strip.
The row of picture. Oh,
yeah,
cool.
exactly. Yeah.
That's cool. You still have that.
Yeah, I have that as a reminder of where I started.
Where you came from.
Yeah. And so so I started teaching dance, and then what happened was, and this is how destiny plays its role, right? I had all this free time in the world, and I had started DJing already, but I was only doing things like, again, my friend Susanna from Madison House is key person, because she was like, PK, and that's what a lot of my close friends call me, PK, you love music from all over the world. You're dancing Latin, African, Arabic music all the time. Can you just DJ for a fundraiser that I'm having? And I was like, no, I'm not a DJ. I'm the guy who's like rocking the dance floor. I'm not back there looking bored, I'm not that guy, right? That was my idea of what DJing is. Like this person in the back, totally.
So interesting to say, I'm not that guy.
Right. Yeah, I was like, I'm not that person. But I did it because that's part of my nature, is if my friends ask me to do something, I will go out of my way to do it,
Okay.
And so I was like, okay. So I had started putting on playlists, and I started DJing for house parties in March of 2009. And then in June, July of that month or that year, before I had quit Intel, this club called Pashas, which played amazing international music, European, Arabic, top 40 a little bit, but mainly international music. The DJs there, they would want Indian music, and they'd be like, hey man, can you give me some Indian music? So I would give them CDs occasionally, So they got in touch with me, and they said, hey, we're really looking to strengthen Fridays at our club. Would you like to DJ? And I was like, man, I mean, I've been playing some house parties, but doing a club, I don't know about that, And they're like, well, think about it and let us know, And so I started getting into DJing a little bit, and I realized how I had a very tiny little controller, $75, $80 controller. And the thing about it was you pressed a button and it decided anywhere between 1 to 2.5 seconds after it made that decision when it wanted to. It would act
Wow.
what you wanted it to do, right? So with that, it was like impossible to like really do anything with DJing aside from playing full songs, right? So up until then, I had just been playing full songs one after the other. And then I thought to myself, well, I have this free time. And thankfully, by that time, technology had evolved enough that I did not have to spend thousands of dollars to get into DJing. I could buy a $300 controller that was a professional controller. But at that time, the $300 was a big investment. So I sat on it for a while. I was like, do I really want to spend this money that I don't really have a lot of, And so after I had, secured the gig with Pashas, and they were going to pay me some change, and I was like, okay, well, I can sort of negotiate with myself that I'm going to be earning some money from this club that I can, then pay off the controller with, right? And so I bought the controller, and then the most curious thing happened. I would not let go of that controller. The 8 hours a day singing practice was not happening, but spending 8 hours with that controller every night was absolutely happening. And so it was a very, very simple controller. I'll never forget it. A legendary controller in digital DJing. It's called the Vestax VCI 300. Very basic 2-channel controller, very simple, not too many knobs. But I was very curious about what everything did to music and how, as a dance teacher, I would count music, beats and bars and all of that. I was familiar with that. So I started just organically letting my creativity get expressed through the controller without even knowing that that's what I was doing. I was just curious about this little machine and what it does, And there was no one like guiding me through this. It was just me and the controller and long nights, night after night after night. And so I started learning about DJing, about how to blend songs together, how to mix them, using the EQ and, reading up on forums and whatnot about things that people were doing. And then I started making mixtapes. And this is where things took a different turn for me, because for fun, I would make these mixtapes and I would send them out to my friends. I'd be like, hey, I was up all night here, enjoy, And so that got me a gig. And I had quit my job at Intel at that time. So DJing was not really a revenue source. It was for fun.
Right.
And then teaching dance was my main revenue at the time,
Okay.
And so I was teaching.
After the Office Max.
This was after the Office Max. After Office Max, I was like, if I have to break my back, I'll break my back teaching dance.
How long did you do the Office Max job?
I really did one weekend.
Oh, wow.
That was enough for me.
Okay.
Because, you have to understand where I was coming from. I was this golden boy, right? I have went to... I'm from a lower middle class family, so I know what poverty or at least what it feels like to live in a very small space and all of that, right? But I never had to go hungry, thankfully. And I was in India. You get a lot of things are provided for you, like your parents, And then I went to a great school in India, and I went to a really good school in the US. So I had never really known what it is to do like a bartending job or a waiter's job or something, It was my first time getting into this, right?
Totally. Like a job.
Just a job. Just a job, right? And so I had this I was like, well, I'm gonna just work hard, but in what I like, So, and that boldness, I think, paid off, right? Instead of telling myself that I couldn't do it and that no one's going to show up. And there were many times when I started teaching dance that no one showed up. And I used that as an opportunity to create and to be in the flow of creativity. And I would feel sad about no one showing up, and I would just be like, I'll take a moment and be like, well, that sucks, and then move on,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people would stop at that point.
Yeah.
I mean, did you ever consider that? Or
I did. I don't remember a very particular moment of when and how, but I also was so in love with music and dance. I had spent 27 years on Earth, and out of that, at least I would say 17 or maybe 20 years, I remember having a conscious passion for doing this, right? And so finally I had the opportunity to do this. And so what I would look at that Sunday morning as would be the time to play music and just dance, because I'd never given myself that permission to do that before, because I had to be that older son older brother doing,
Yeah.
And so while all of that was very much there, like, oh, I should just quit, what is happening, this is not working out. Also, concurrently, what was there was, this is fun. I get to be in this attic and play my own music and dance,
Yeah, take a step back for a second.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
This is really cool. I'm doing something cool.
Yeah.
So I've got a question. I loved hearing how you went to the dance nights and didn't talk to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
That itself, it seems like a really hard thing to do, like that first step of like, because quitting the job is big. Putting yourself out there is big.
Yeah.
But it's like it seemed like the dance night was that first step. Where it's like, you know what, I love dance. I'm just gonna go tonight. And that fear can keep people inside.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who like who knows what they want to do?
Yeah.
But they're like, I don't dance. Like that's stupid. Like I'm gonna go there and no one's gonna talk to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you say?
You have to act as if. Those 3 words are awesome. You have to just act as if sometimes, Like that voice is always going to be there. And I believe my whole way I communicate with people, especially as a dance teacher, I always come from that place of fear that I had in me. And because I took that chance, it took me to places that I never would have gone by myself, And so I believe there are legitimate days and nights when you just need to not let the outside world come in and take care of yourself, but that cannot be your whole life, and you've got to give yourself that chance. And the worst that will happen is that you will spend 2-3 hours listening to great music and literally no one will ask you to dance, and yet you are out there watching people dance and you could just enjoy seeing them dance, Yeah. And there's so much more that you could get out of it, because most likely if you stay at home, and I'm guilty of this as well, you'll be either on Facebook or you'll be reading news articles that you really don't care about, or watching cat videos, which is fun. That is fun. I'll give you that. But then you'll be doing all of these things that are sort of the World Wide Web way of connecting, or you could go out there and see what real people are doing. And case in point, even now. This is Thursday. Tuesday night, I took myself to blues dancing, and I think I had 2 dances, and I was there for like an hour and a half, and I still struggle with like just going out there and asking someone to dance, and especially because I wouldn't say I'm a blues dancer by any means of imagination, but I still took myself out there. And for first time was a lady asking me to dance, and I danced with her and we had fun and she was very appreciative, and then I mustered up the courage to ask someone to dance after that. So 13 years down the line, rocking parties across the US and India, thousands of people, and when I show up to social dancing, that anxiety is still very much a part of me, And so I'm not telling you, if you're listening to this, I'm not telling you to do something that I have mastered. I'm telling you to do something that I still struggle with.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
But it's so cool that like it's a reality that it stays with you. It's just something like you just gotta keep. It's like, look, this is a part of me. Like, there's something that's in my internal voice that wants to keep me at home, keep me not going out. But it's something that I know what makes me happy. So I gotta go. I gotta go do it.
Yeah, and you can do it in a reasonable way. I remember I would be like, I'm gonna go out for 1 hour. I'm gonna go social dancing for 1 hour. Then the reward for that would be that, or the reward will be going dancing, so let's be productive before that, or let's be productive after that. Because oftentimes what I hear is, I have too much work, and I have too much schoolwork, and homework, and work, and I have kids, and I have all of that, right? And yes, I think that's legitimate, but you can take 1 hour or an hour and a half out, and that time, you may not realize it, but it leaks into being on social media or being here and being there. And again, I'm not saying that I'm above or beyond it. I am totally guilty of it. But however, also make time to take a dance class, take a singing class, journaling, go to meetup.com. There are so many amazing things that people are doing. It doesn't have to be dance. If it's dance, great. If it's Bollywood dance, great. Come and dance with me every Wednesday. But it doesn't have to be any of that. It could be something that you are really afraid of and passionate about,
Now you knew, like when you were at Cornell, you knew that dancing was what you wanted to do. Did you always know it, like even when you were a kid or a teenager, or did it just kind of reveal itself in that depressed?
Yeah, so it was 21 years back, about 21, 22 years back, that I remember we used to have these parties. They were called kiddie parties. And potpourri, which is basically potluck, Indian name for potluck. And so we would have these kiddie parties, potpourris on the top floor or the terrace of our apartment building. And that was my first Bollywood performance. And I remember wearing these shades late at night and dancing to this song and feeling really alive and passionate, So it was definitely a part of my upbringing. But it was something that I just did for fun, like many kids did, There was nothing terribly unique about it. I obviously always felt really alive, when I did it. And I came out of it, and then I'd be like, man, I want to do this all the time, But I always told myself, oh, come on, many people in this world want to do it all the time, Just go to your school, do your homework, be a good son, be a good kid, be a good older brother.
You can't be a professional dancer.
Right,
you
exactly.
Can't dance for money, or for a profession.
Yeah.
Because I've someone said now there's so much demand that you could do anything. Like you can turn anything into a profession.
I think so, yeah.
Do you see that?
I think that this has happened particularly in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say. It's unraveling right now in front of us. I believe that all of these social media tools that are coming in our hands, YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, you name it, something is shifting in that the common man is more empowered to do what they want to do now than probably ever before. But then I wasn't there ever before, so I can't say for a fact,
Right.
But I can say in the last 9 years, it's shifted a lot, For example, Facebook played a key role in my message getting to people that otherwise would not have, would have had to rely on word of mouth or whatever. I was able to spread my message to more people quicker because of Facebook, I know that is true for me, and so, and I guess for different people, different things are happening, like DJ Khaled right now, if you look at his Snapchat, he's got millions of followers, and his Snapchat and what he does, he just shares his regular real life, what's happening, with him, like he'll be working out or taking a shower or appreciating beauty and nature and flowers and take Snapchats of that, and people are loving it, and I believe that that's happening to a lot of people. So this is actually the generation to be able to do what you love to do and express it, I think now is the time.
That's
The time is now.
And I like how you said when you were dancing that you felt alive. And I think it's important for people to recognize that in themselves. Like when they're doing certain things, dancing, arts and crafts, archery, or I'm just naming
whatever it
hobbies,
may be.
But the thing that stirs you up inside.
Yeah.
And now we live in the world where somehow, some way, it might not be the idea that they think it is, but to follow that.
Yeah.
It's possible now.
Yeah.
I think that's so wonderful. This is a little bit more broad and spiritual.
Okay.
Do you believe that people have a purpose? They're on Earth to do a certain thing.
Yeah. Well, that I feel severely disqualified to answer that question. I do believe that for me, there's a personal calling that I feel to just be a decent, more and more decent human being, and to be what I feel that I have is I want to be more supportive to myself and to everyone that is around me that I'm personally in touch with. I want to be able to be less damaging to the environment around me. And if I can bring joy, inspiration, and fun to myself and to other people, it makes me feel good. So in a very selfish way, I know that I feel the best about myself when I feel like I'm being of service. And so being of service is something that is my calling, but it's also very selfish calling, because I think it's the best kind of selfishness that one could have,
right.
you know?
Right.
And so in that sense, I think that if we can just all think about it that way, that I'm not being holier than thou by like helping other people, I am being best kind of selfish by helping other people because it makes me feel good about myself, you know? And I try to really ground myself in that. And that seems to be the broad and spiritual answer that I can give to you at this point of time, you know?
I think that's wonderful. Especially, there's a lot of pressure on people who are my age. I'm 27, so that was around the age when you started making your turn.
Yeah.
Where it's like, 20, 25, 30, this pressure of like, I gotta do something big, and it can crush people. And I've heard advice given in all sorts of packages, but your answer just now is I say broad in the good way. It's like, look, don't worry about it. Just be a good human being. Follow what you love. Do what you like. You got the tools now with technology to spread your message.
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll have that voice always telling you not to do it. And the voice might win 80% of the time. But your job is to at least win 20% of the time.
Because it's convincing, too.
Yes, very convincing.
These very persuasive arguments.
Absolutely.
Very good reasoning.
Yeah.
How do you, just a quick bit there.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a technique for that? Or a way you've learned over the years?
Yeah, no, and as someone I honestly, genuinely still struggle with that voice and still buy into that voice occasionally, you know. I think one of the best things I've learned is to start talking, having accountability partners. So like reaching out of myself, calling a friend and being like, hey, this is the kind of day I'm having right now, you know, I'm having all these thoughts come up, and maybe having a pact with one or two friends that they're not going to jump into advice, because this is something that happens a lot, right?
Yeah.
Is that people want to fix other people, and I don't think that magic happens when you try to fix other people. Maybe it does, but what I have found is that if I can simply say, I understand that, I have that too, or I don't even have to say anything. If I can just let people talk to me, they are able to navigate their way out of the situation themselves, you know? And so just being able to reach out to someone is really, really crucial, I find, you know? And it doesn't have to be that you pour your heart open to someone. It could simply be an act of, hey, kind of having a crummy day, or hey, just got out of bed. Whatever, you know, something, but reach out. I think that's been really, really helpful.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say is music, you know, it's like having music around you is a really, really good way to sort of keep because music, at least for me, it affects my mood a lot, you know. If I listen to sad music, I can have all sorts of sad thoughts. Sometimes I like to do that just because I like to be sad, I guess.
Indulge that inner voice.
Yeah.
Just like ring out the emotions.
Yes, exactly. And you could have motivational and good and happy music, you know, on a day like today, like that would just do wonders, right?
Yeah.
And so I did not do it this morning, but that is something that I could do, and now I'm telling you, so I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to create a nice happy playlist for myself that starts at a certain time in the morning. And next time we talk, hopefully I'll tell you how the playlist is going.
Cool. Final question.
Yeah.
Why do you do this?
Yeah, I think the broad spiritual answer that I gave is really the key that I'm finding now. Why do I drive myself to these crazy hours, to like sleeping very less sometimes and traveling and, you know, all of that? And for me, the main answer is that I get a feeling that I am helping people and I'm serving this world in a way that I would not be able to otherwise, you know?
I think coming at your work from a service service approach. Like what can I do to give to the world? Again, it's such a relief off someone as well. Wonderful. Thanks, Prashant.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's wonderful.
Yeah.